And we're going to call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first order of business is the approval of the agenda, but I believe we have an amendment.
I need to make a motion to amend the agenda to add the language for going into executive session at the end of the session. If you give me 1 second, I'll pull it right up, unless you have it in front of you. I don't need it?
No, just waiting for the agenda.
Okay. Then I'll make that motion.
Second. Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of open session minutes from August 8th, 2016. Could I get a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes, open session minutes from August 8th.
Second. Any discussion? Any issues? Anybody have any problems with them? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. That passes. Opportunity for community comments. Does anybody in the audience have anything they wish to add or talk about? No? Okay. Moving right along to the superintendent's comments.
All right, well, good evening and welcome to a new school year, everybody. The first thing that I'd like to report is something that gives me a great deal of pleasure, and it's introducing our new Director of Technology Integration, a gentleman who came on board around the 1st of August or so, and really hit the ground running, being super, super helpful, particularly with our one-to-one learning program and with the many, as you know, infrastructure and technology projects that we had over the summer, and then our staff coming back to math books and to the switch to Gmail and the various Google apps and Google Classroom. So it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce Dave Quinn. Dave, the handsome guy with the red tie in the front row over there. As I say in the background notes, he is an alum. His undergraduate degree is from UMass Amherst, and most recently he has been in the doctoral program in the School of Education at the University of Rhode Island, where he's focusing his doctoral studies on technology integration. As I say, also, he's had the opportunity to work with both undergraduate and graduate students, but also fellow educators, presenting on a whole variety of topics, such as the use of different tools and applications, such as Google Apps for Education, Weebly, and Evernote, just to name a few. I could not think of somebody who is an absolute better fit for this position, who's coming in at the right time. So just wanted an introduction, so now you have a face and a name, and we're really looking forward to a lot of great work from Dave. So welcome.
Welcome,
Very
Dave.
happy to be here.
My second order of business, as I do every year, usually around the first September meeting, is just to kind of give you a sense of where we are with regard to our enrollment. Keep in mind our official enrollment, as everybody else in the state, is October 1st. So these are our numbers as of last Friday. So there's usually a little bit of variability. As a matter of fact, our very first week of school, and Jan Gallagher always predicts this, we actually had 5 enrollments the first 2-3 days of school at Buffalo. So there will be a little variability, but it gives you a sense of where we are. So right now, we are, as a district, at 2,279 students. You see the breakdown there. 428 at Clough, 440 at Memorial, 785 at the middle school, and then just a hair under 600, 596 here at ITMA, and then 30 out of district placements. So how that compares to our official October 1st enrollment of last year, as a district, we are down a grand total of 43 students. which translates to about a 1.5% decrease. As we said before, the overwhelming majority of districts across the state are seeing a population decrease. I do find it kind of interesting in our enrollment projections that we used for budgeting. We were projecting about 60 fewer students. So we actually ended up with more than we were anticipating. It's pretty much losses across the board, with exception of Memorial, but that's a little bit of a red herring, seeing the +9 there, because last year we had the Spanish immersion kindergartners go to Clough. This year there's 2 strands, so that is what compensates for that +9.
But last year's kindergartners are still at Clough.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
So you see the breakdown by the 2 towns. I do think it is significant right now. We are at 161 kids choicing in, and we are only at 41 choicing out. So we're at a point where I would consider it to be the quote-unquote sweet spot, in the sense that you do want to fill places where you're close to maximum class size with some choice students where you can across the board, but you don't want too many, so to speak. But that, as you can see, you're talking about an increase of about 18 students versus where we finished last year as far as choice requests. Our average class sizes, I think we're at a very, very good spot. As you can see across the board at our elementary, with the exception of 1 class at 1 school, 4th grade, they're either high teens, low 20s, so very, very reasonable optimum for learning. At the middle school, you can see, again, grades 5 and 6, very optimum as far as the younger kids coming in, and then in the ballpark of around 25 for grades 7 and 8. And then at Nipmuc, again, very favorable, kind of commensurate with the district, high teens, low 20s, depending on the content. Sure.
Why does it go up in middle school? Like, why do we start off lower and then our class size increases in 7th and 8th grade?
I think,
Am I just
and I'll answer for you, Ann, but feel free to impart. I think Ann intentionally schedules it that way, how she deploys people for her teams, and also the team structure for 5 and 6 versus the way you do it in 7 and 8.
I figured it had something to do with structure and schedule, but I wasn't sure.
We have about 200 kids per class, give or take, and I have 9 homework teachers in 6th grade, and I have 8 homework teachers in 7th and 8th.
That makes more
8th
sense.
graders definitely have those that they're fine, great, and I just love the class sizes for 5th and 6th.
Yeah, I agree.
Very excited about
That's
it.
right.
And then again, to think where we were 5 or 6 years ago, at the secondary level, high 20s, low 30s. I'll never forget, I quoted verbatim the statistic our first year together. I think it was something like 35 to 40% of all classes at Nipmuc were 30 or higher. And I know you were bursting at the seams, Ann.
At Nipmuc?
Both at Nipmuc and
and
NISCO.
NISCO.
Yeah, my 7th and 8th grade classes were over 30, all of them. 5th and 6th, a little like high 20s. So this is fabulous.
And then we had situations, at the 2 elementary schools, particularly with Spanish immersion, where we had multi-grade groupings. We had multi-grade groupings of classes of 32 and 33. So we're in a
Much better place.
much, much better place, to say the least. So in a couple more meetings, I'll give you the final official October 1 numbers, but just to give you a sense of where we started the school year. Last but not least, I put in the background notes and then a memo from the Department of Education In early August, they awarded the contract for the quote-unquote next generation MCAS. Surprise, surprise, the Measured Progress, which is the firm that has been creating the MCAS for probably upwards of at least 12 to 15 years, got the contract for it. So I think the most significant piece here is the transition to strictly a digital format for the administration of this test. Okay, I believe the transition is slated for all digital by spring of 2019. And what they're doing is they're starting this coming spring, the spring of 17, with the 4th graders and the 8th graders will be digital. So I'd say, the net is, in many ways, it's going to be similar tests. In other ways, there's going to be some new type items on it that very much mirror PARCC tests. I think the biggest concern and some of the biggest shifts that we have to make is getting our students more used to taking more digital assessments, online assessments. Yes, the kids do a lot of stuff online, obviously, but I think it is when you're taking an assessment and getting used to various online manipulatives and different interfaces, it's really important to give our kids sufficient practice. So part of our district action plans and our school improvement plans call for a robust use of digital assessments. Okay. Any questions on any of that?
Can you just repeat the part about when it's going to be administered digitally?
Starting this spring for grades 4 and 8, and then for everybody in the spring of 19.
Okay.
So we've got a couple years.
So 4th grade, the elementary school kids are going to be taking it, and we have enough iPads and everything to.
Yeah, they'll probably take it on the desktops that are in the labs.
Technology.
Yeah.
So how do you schedule that? What does that look like? 'Cause right now it's put on paper, so everybody's taking it at the same time, and we don't have.
Yeah, what we'll have to do is for each of the, let's see now, 4 classes, they'll have to schedule it at disparate times.
Is the time frame about the same, or did they extend any time frames for administration so that we could accommodate for that?
Yeah, they did extend it, and
Okay.
they've sent some preliminary kind of guidance out for districts, and they're going to have follow-up guidance, because obviously, a lot of districts, this is going to be, difficult for some districts for that transition. So we plan to meet and look to see what the best way to implement it here will be.
So initially, when they were talking about PARCC, it was timed, right? The PARCC
Correct.
testing was timed, so we're saying that they're allowing more time for it?
You have a window of when you can give MCAS and
Yeah.
give the test, so they're extending the window because some people are going to have to do, like we're going to have to do rotating through for the,
Gotcha.
So they're
Okay.
giving us more time to
So it
implement
doesn't
it.
necessarily all have to happen in one day?
No, I don't know all the details yet of how we're going to, kind of like what sessions go each day, but typically it's 1 session a day or maybe 2 based on the timing. But it's not timed like the PARCC was timed.
Okay.
That's one piece of our,
Yeah.
controlled MCAS,
Okay.
2.0. And maybe later on in the year, we could give an update when we have more information, if that's something that you
Yeah, I'm just
wanted to
curious how.
hear about
they're-
once we have the plan
Like, I
in
mean,
place.
you can easily see how they'll pull it off in 8th grade.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit of a different
Absolutely.
element in 4th grade because it's not 1-to-1, so.
Yes. Not me. Thank goodness.
Okay, sorry. Okay, administrator's comment, moving right along to the recognition of Nipmuc Regional High School as a Newsweek Top Public High School in America with John Clemens.
Hi,
Thanks, John.
everybody. As Joe said, welcome back to another school year. I know you have a ton of business to cover tonight, so thanks for the chance to be on the agenda. Just really excited to share this. By now, it's not breaking news, but it's still very exciting news that we were named to Newsweek's list of the top 500 high schools. As kids and teachers have been coming back, I've been saying two things to them. I've been saying, congratulations, one, because it's certainly a hard-fought accomplishment. Our teachers have worked really, really hard to get there. And then also, thank you. Big thank you to our teachers and our students. High expectations and really high professional capacity has shown up in this ranking, which we're really excited about. I'm glad to be here tonight, though, to share that thank you and congratulations with the community, because we certainly wouldn't be here without the community support that we've received. I look at 500 schools in the nation out of 15,000, 18 schools in Massachusetts, and only 3 in central Massachusetts. This has always been a metric that I've really respected. And so for us to show up on this list, it's one more validation that we're moving in the right direction. I've been saying time and again, you've heard me say it, I feel a momentum in the school. I feel a school culture that's focused on continuous improvement and growth. And so we're not doing this for the lists and for the recognition, but it really feels good when you get it. And it's an outside validation. When you look at it, with the DESE commended school, one of 5 schools in the Commonwealth to get that last year, to be one of 2 schools in the Commonwealth recognized as a National Consortium of Secondary STEM Schools, to have our strong accreditation visit, and then to throw this on top of it. It's 4 really powerful validations of the work in the past year. So I'm excited. I say all the time, we've got a strategic plan we believe in. We've got educators with tremendous capacity, kids with high expectations. You take that and couple it with community support, and you get results. So I'm very proud, very excited, and fortunate to be here on behalf of our teachers and kids to announce it to the community.
Well, congratulations and thank you to you.
Yeah.
Great job. Okay, Maureen Cohen, professional development activities and what our focus will be.
Okay, so we had an excellent first day of our PD for the year on August 30th, and I took a little bit in my presentation there, so this was the opening slide on the day from momentum that the superintendent had with his opening day speech about continuous improvement, talking about the Beatles. So I love this, and if we were excited, we had a very exciting day with lots of positive feedback. First, I wanted to thank, we have a lot of members on our PD committee, and we meet throughout the whole year, and we're constantly reflecting and looking at survey data, and I know you've seen that in different curriculum updates. We try to share out the data after each PD day, but it's really as a team effort. We have representatives across the district, and so we're always seeking new feedback, but they really had a lot to do with the planning for this year. So we decided heading into this year, the 2016-17, that we'd have a focus on social emotional learning. And this is a topic that is right across the state. Superintendents Association's looking at it, the secondary principals, MESPA for elementary principals, and really everyone's kind of looking at the issues and how do we support our students with the various needs. And so in planning for this coming year, we were really fortunate to, and I'm going to talk about them in a second, have a great keynote for the opening day, but we also are focusing on various workshops throughout the year to have kind of a thread throughout our conversations. Go to the next slide. All right. So we had Rick Lavoie as our keynote speaker, and I was in the hallway here, and a teacher came up to me, stopped me, and I had a lot of this, and stopped me after and said, I've been here over 20 years, and that was the best professional development that I've ever been a part of. Like, people were just stopping me, so that was awesome to hear that. But what I want to talk about is what his message was. So he has a really strong 30 plus years in special education, learning disabilities. These are the books that he's written, and he also has famous video series back into the 90s called Fat City, and then also Beyond Fat City. And so what we asked him to come and speak about was a keynote related to the motivation breakthrough, and I explained to the teachers that this is it's in my bag, but I was going to show it to you, but this is the book that kind of changed me as an educator. So the book that when I would talk to new teachers, when I was an assistant principal, I said, oh, there's something in this book, so it's something that I always use. So for me, you had a lot of groupies there that were getting him to sign the books, that had been watching his videos or he had seen him speak over the years. And so he spoke for the first 2 hours, and then he offered a workshop after that on ADHD that we had probably, I didn't check the numbers, but it looked like close to 40 or 50 people went to that particular workshop as well. And so he was phenomenal, and we have lots of resources and PowerPoints to follow up, and a lot of teachers are saying, how can we get this book? So I have a long list of teachers that want the book and follow up related to his message about motivation and how do we work with motivation in our kids and understanding them that maybe they're motivated for different things that maybe we're motivated, and understanding how to work with diverse learners. So we go to the next slide. So I pulled out a few highlights. I probably picked the top ones for you maybe, but what overall rating would you give the keynote? And so that's pretty good data. That could be the best that we've ever had. I'll have to compare it to Alan November last year and see who wins. But and then I pulled a few of the quotes, but there was a wide range of responses. So I just tried to give you a snapshot that it talked about. It was entertaining, heartfelt. A lot of it was inspirational. He talked about the different motivations, something I can go and use. It made me think differently. And so there's a lot of really positive feedback about the keynote session. So if you go to the next slide. Then we followed up with Ed Camp sessions that we did last year for the first time. So we had about 52 or 3 last year, and we had a little bit less because we did have Go Math training all day, so large groups were in that. We also had a lot of technology training as Ed Camp sessions that had a large number of faculty members were participating in that. But basically we had a Google spreadsheet, and we had a half an hour, and people proposed what workshops they might want to facilitate or lead. And I actually ran out of room. In my screenshot, it actually keeps going further on the right, but it just gives you a sense of the different types of topics. You probably can't read it from there, but you had a lot of, and we noticed there was a trend of having a number of meetings, vertical meetings, which is something that they've been asking for, so it provided them time where you have social studies meeting together, music, art, kindergarten on curriculum, but we also had social emotional issues, social thinking. So in looking at the types, it was really a wide range. And if we go to the next page, we can see what they thought about it. So one, I always like to put this question in, because this connection of when we have PD, obviously what we want to do is to be able to go enter the classroom the next day and implement strategies. So I like to make that connection in the surveys, and I've always had it in the surveys. So it was a very strong response with that. And we had co-teaching, Google Classroom, ADHD, department curriculum, Go Math, social thinking, and there were, I ran out of room here, but you have people saying, I'm going to go into the classroom and implement some of these strategies right away. That was really helpful. Some responses were, something I'm going to do tomorrow is do this. So if we go to the next one. So would you like to have a future PD day using the EdCamp model again? So overwhelmingly, yes. And the most positive features, basically the themes are, you have choice, we talk about choice and voice. And so they have a voice in what they want to do, they have choice, and also in an EdCamp you can go into one part of a session, then you can go into another session, so you actually are able to attend more than one in an hour-long session as well, if possible. But it allows that flexibility, and also some people really dove into really hands-on activities, figuring out, because that's what they wanted to do, and others went to presentations, so it really was a good mix. Some of the only negative feedback was that some people felt that there wasn't enough sessions compared to last year, but I think that was just the nature of the fact that we had a couple large trainings going on, so that pulled some people out that last year were offering their own sessions. But other than that, it again was a very good start to the year and had a good balance and mix between the keynote and workshops. Is that it? Oh, one more. Okay, so leading into what we already have scheduled out for some of the future days. So we're partnering through the Blackstone Valley Curriculum Consortium. So I meet with curriculum directors, assistant superintendents, and all the Blackstone Valley. We meet monthly and we plan out PD. And so we're members of that. And so we decided last spring, because of this common theme, that we would host a conference together. And because it's on the election day, where a lot of people have the PD, a lot of people can't use their buildings because they're voting sites. So we're going to Uxbridge High School because it's a non-voting site. And so we're kind of going to be bringing people from all over school districts there, and we're putting together a social emotional learning conference. So some of the topics we have so far, we have a keynote of Nancy Clements on social thinking to start, trauma in the classroom, signs of suicide, transgender, growth mindset, and I'm not going to read the whole list, but PBIS, RTI, some things that faculty have been asking for. And so there's, again, we have the wide range of choices that will be taking place. And then in March, I tried to get Jessica Minahan for the beginning of the school year originally. Don't tell Rick Lavoie that, but I tried to get her, and everyone else had already booked her, so I was able to book her for March. But she had presented in a number of places last year, and she's a phenomenal presenter about anxiety and helping students with different behavioral issues that might be going on in the classroom and how to work with them. And she's phenomenal, and I'm really a huge fan of Sarah Ward, who presents on executive functioning, so I was able to get her, not earlier, but in March as well. And so March is our teacher-driven PD day, and we try to do a balance where we offer a keynote, offer some other kind of training sessions, but also people have the opportunity to run their own sessions and have that choice and flexibility as well. Any questions?
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Maureen, I actually heard people talking about the keynote speaker too.
Oh, did you?
About how fabulous
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
It's great to hear. Okay, FY 2016 financial closeout. Jay.
Hi,
Hi, Jay.
I'm gonna sit down if that's okay. They're all way younger than I am. All right, so FY16, we're just in the process, just now filing the end of the year report. We pretty much have closed out everything. It takes quite a while to get done. I think we're there. So I tried to put together just some basic numbers here. That's how much money we take in. In our budget, we have three different categories. We have the general fund, we have the revolving accounts, we have the grant accounts. Money comes in, money gets spent, it's dollar for dollar, so there's never anything left over. The revolving accounts, it's pretty much the same thing, except something that we call the enterprise funds that we bring some money. The general fund is what everybody cares about. We ended up the year, the uncommitted balance, what that means is that's how much money we have left at the end of the fiscal year. It's $443,771, which is really very good. Now, the reasons for that, there's several. Mostly we had very mild winter. We did a lot of snow removal. Heating costs were down. Those two alone added up. We also had some additional revenue that I'll talk about in a second, which helped build that up a little bit. So just a general explanation of how the undesignated fund balance works. Last year we finished the balance itself, and it accrues year to year to year. It adds up. We finished with $400,000 one year, $300,000 the next year, now it's $700,000 in that balance. We had a little over $1 million last year. We appropriated $350,000 out of that, which was the ED appropriation, which we were certified at about $739,000. We're allowed 5%, which is about $1.6 million, so we're about half of that at the end of last year. We're going to add another $443,000 to the $1 million, which is going to put us up at 1.5. And then we're going to take $250,000 out, so I'm anticipating that we're going to get our E&D balance up to about $1.2 million. That can change because the state looks at everything, and if they think a revolving account isn't doing as well, they'll necessarily lower your E&D certification. It's a little state formula that nobody really gets. But all in all, if we can finish with over $1 million, I think that's a really good thing. That's the number I like to shoot for, is around $1 million, which is about 3.5–4%. That's what we should end up. It gives us protection in case something goes wrong in the fiscal year, in case we have several out of district tuition issues, anything like that. It gives us some protection. I said multiple times during the override campaign last year that my goal every year is to finish with 1% of my budget. 1% of the budget is about $340,000. We finished about $100,000 higher than that. And again, electricity, heating costs, snow removal were big savings. But the other thing that helped us a lot is FY15, we had all that snow. FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Association, came in and we were granted, we were considered a disaster area. We were allowed to apply for grant money to get reimbursed for some of our costs. So I went through that whole process. It was quite lengthy.
And particularly the removal of snow off the roofs.
Removal of snow off the roofs, plowing up the parking lot, moving the piles. If you remember, we had moved piles on top of piles to make room for more piles. All of that added up, but it was the snow removal and the labor involved in that. So we ended up getting $54,000 back in FY16 for expenses in FY15, which then go into the general fund. That helped us a lot, because that's $54,000. So that was good. Like I said, they asked millions of questions. Everybody asked us things. We could finally do all of that, but that helped us a lot. So all in all, I'm pretty positive with how we finished last year. I try to budget appropriately so that we have protection in our budget for unforeseen things. I try to keep E&D at a good level so that we can deal with stuff as it comes. So that's where that's ending up at this point. Now, the end of the year reports due the end of this month. As soon as I finish that, I file the E&D certification, which we usually get sometime in October. That's when we know for sure exactly what everything happens. All right, summer projects. So let's talk about some of that. I'm sure you've seen all the work that's getting done everywhere. The main two biggies that have been done. The biggest one was replacement of all of these fixtures in this room, over there, in every building, every fixture. Parking lot lights, everything is replacement of LED fixture. There was a cost to us for that, which is financed over 5 years. It's going to save us 25% per kilowatt usage. So for the first 5 years, we won't realize any financial savings. That savings is paying for the retrofit. Once that's done, I think we're going to probably save approximately $100,000 a year in electricity costs just from having better fixtures. So that's one thing that was done. I believe they're 100% complete now. National Grid's going to do an inspection. But all in all, I think everybody's happy with the lights. So all is good. Solar carports. I'm sure all of you have driven by Misco at some point and seen the carports that have been built. They're 3/4 done. All the panels are up. They're still, if you look at them carefully, you'll see little wires hanging down. They have to connect them all. It's got to be wired into our meter. The National Grid has to come and do some other stuff. So it's probably going to be, I think, probably more than a solar operation. But they should be operational in about 6 weeks from now. The Dyken site is a ground site that we also had as part of this project. That's been operational since May. We may have said this last time, we may not. So far, we've had 2 buildings on which we received $30,000 of credits and paid $16,000 in revenues. So that's great in my opinion. We have a third ground site that is not constructed yet, but will be coming up. Once that's all done, I anticipate we're going to save $140,000 a year in electricity costs from that. Put it together, $200,000 a year. So
Very excited.
they can see out there. It's
But more importantly, it's renewable.
right.
Renewable.
Well, and that's the other thing. Once the solar project is done, 95% of our electricity, probably closer to 98%, is being produced by solar power. I think that makes a statement that we're doing something for the environment. It saves us money, which, as you know, is one of my favorite things to do. So it all kind of works in a little grand scheme. The last thing we did was we rewired Misco Hill and did some extension of wiring in all the other buildings with access points, like that thing you see up there on the wall, so that we have better Wi-Fi capability in all 4 buildings now. We really didn't have Wi-Fi at Memorial and Clough. We do now. We've completely rewired Misco Hill so that we've got all new Cat 6 wiring. This building and Misco and Clough and Memorial already had the kind of wiring we needed, but we've extended everything out. The reason for that is that everybody's got wireless devices now. We need to have a lot of people on the Wi-Fi. That was paid for in two ways. One, out of some of the operational budget from last year, and the other one was out of school choice. And that will be, we haven't paid those bills yet because they're still billing us. We anticipate, the cost of it was around $375,000. We expect to get approximately 40% of that back over the course of the year in E-rate reimbursement. But the way that works is you got to pay it up front. Then if they approve you, you get the money back. So there's still a little risk factor there, but I'm hoping we're going to get, you know, if we can get $150,000 back, that really kind of offsets everything and does a great thing, you know, to keep us moving. And that's about it as far as FY16. Is there any questions on that?
I was just wondering what has been the comments or anything of the carports at the middle school?
I haven't received,
Anything?
no, I've received little or no comments whatsoever. I mean, the only person that ever said anything to me was a friend of my son's who I asked, who happens to live on Misco Road, and I said to him one day, I said, what do you think of them? And he said, oh, I think those are awesome. I didn't know what they were, and then I saw solar panels. That's cool. But he's 23, so I don't know if you can take that for much more than a kid thinking it was cool. I've really gotten no other feedback,
I'm just
negative or
curious.
positive.
I can say the parents in open house were very excited that we were showing the children the responsible nature of, a school district, and the parents were very appreciative of it. They did have a couple, jokesters saying nice gas stations outside while they were going up, but overwhelmingly, the kids are very excited that we're saving energy and that we're, part of the system.
And another piece of that, and we haven't exactly solidified how that's going to look, but we are going to have an educational component to these carports that hopefully will involve some kind of monitoring station in the building in the front lobby. I'd also like to see if we could have a similar type of setup where the kids with their iPads could log in to see exactly like how it all works and what it's doing. We haven't really finalized how that's going to look yet, but that's another component that we had asked for in the beginning. Hopefully
There's several really neat software packages out there that basically picture, a flat screen that size that would be in the lobby of Misco Hill that at any given point in time puts the solar energy in really kid-friendly terms. That, the amount that's produced today or this week or this month is equal to how many cups of hot cocoa, is equal to how many barrels of oil and so on. So we're looking at different software packages that will be able to make it much more accessible to kids.
Any questions on any of this?
So I have a quick question. One of the questions that I'm receiving about the solar carports has less to do with the solar. I think as soon as people figured out what it was all about and the savings that it was affording us, everybody has been very supportive. But the question that I keep getting, and I don't know the answer to, is did we sacrifice any parking spots?
Yes, just a few. We did.
Just a few?
Just a few.
Less than
Probably-
six.
probably
Less than six,
Less
okay.
than six, and, we do have the front lawn, that's always an over.
I noticed.
Lovely parking lot.
Hey, it works.
itself.
It works.
To the
Well-
police department, the Mendon Police Department has been very kind during that whole project. Our teachers were able to park in the back of the building, which they're not allowed to normally as long as we stayed out of fire lanes. So everyone's been incredibly cooperative, it was very nice.
Okay.
I mean, right now, while they're still working, they're closing sections at a time. So like right now, you see that one spot over on the north side has been closed. They're going to be moving out of that within a day or so. They're going to close each carport for a day to do all the wiring connections. The north lot has to be reconfigured because of the way the carports are set up compared to the parking spaces. So we don't really know how that's going to play out yet. I'm hoping that they're going to bring in somebody that actually knows how to make a parking lot. Because I can go out there and draw little chalk lines, but I don't think that's really going to work. But I do believe we're probably going to lose maybe 5 or 6 parking spots in the end, but we should be okay with that.
Okay.
We'll see. I mean, you've got those big pylons in the
I know,
middle.
I was surprised when I saw the size of the pylons.
Those
I
things
was
are
like,
15
wow.
feet deep. I
Holy
think you could
crap.
build the Empire State Building on those
Wow.
things.
Yeah.
They're
I was
just
very
gigantic.
surprised when I saw the
Nothing's going to
size
blow
of
that
them.
down. Yeah.
The carport's gonna stay up.
Yeah, no, the carports aren't going anywhere. We are also exploring buying some kind of reflective something to put around the concrete things just so people don't drive into them, because if you hit them with your car's going to get hurt, but they aren't. So, we're not sure yet. We have to see what they cost, but we're kind of looking into that just to see if there's something we can do. Because painting it means maintenance. You don't want to do that. You'd rather get some kind of like plastic wrap or something. But I don't know. We haven't gotten very far with that.
Thank you.
Great.
before I go back, you want to do the budget recertification too?
If they move that, the order of the agenda.
Unless you don't need me for that, but I sent you a couple more comparative, like certified to where we are at the end. I just sent them to you now, so.
Oh, okay.
Call it real-time budgeting.
Yeah.
I think you just would need a motion to change the order.
Okay. So could we get a motion to change the order of the agenda since recertification falls under new business, but we still have subcommittee to do?
I make a motion to change the order of the agenda and move recertification to the next agenda item.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so the budget from what you certified in March to what you're going to certify tonight is approximately $261,000 higher. The assessments to the towns do not change at all. The difference is that $216,000 is coming from additional state aid, and we've added $45,000 from our transfer in from revolving accounts in order to cover all of the costs. Now, some of the drivers for why that budget has gone up, as many of you know, health insurance is the biggie. I believe it was up about $300,000 from what we anticipated. We also had 3 additional students attending Norfolk Aggie that we weren't aware of. One of them we just became aware of 2 weeks ago. That's about $24,000 per student, so that adds about $70,000 to the budget. So those 2 things have driven the budget up a little bit. Luckily, state aid came in and helped us out, and we do have the funds in our revolving accounts to add some additional money there to get us to the place that we need to be. Beyond that, the motions that you have, where are the motions? Basically recertify the budget at a higher amount and reappropriate money from state aid and from the district accounts. So that's basically what's entailed. So there's 3 motions, which I apparently didn't number quite correctly. There should be 1, 2, and 3, not 1, 2, and 5.
I was wondering why you did that.
It's because I just saved it, you know. Counting isn't as strong as managing money.
Okay, so.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
In the superintendent notes, it indicates a charter school, the net charge is $81,000 less than the certified amount. What's driving that? Do we know?
Because what they do is what we used initially was the governor's budget's number. So the final number is more accurate to the reality of how much we're getting charged for those kids going to charter schools.
Okay.
So the reality is there were less kids going to the charter schools in Marlborough and Franklin than they initially were going to charge us for. So my gut is the reality was probably later in the spring, they learned that some kids either were matriculating back to us or going elsewhere.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess I would need 3 motions for the recertification of the budget, FY 2017. Does anybody want to read it?
That's right, but I can read it. Sure. I make a motion to set the operational budget for the Mendon Upton Regional School District for the 2016-2017 fiscal year at $34,386,277. It consists of the general operations within the levy limit of $32,605,270 and the debt service outside of the levy limit of $1,781,007.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. Another motion. I need make a motion to appropriate $13,006,501 from state aid that consists of the following: Chapter 70 funds, $12,253,186. Regional transportation reimbursement, $831,900 $34. Charter school net charge offsetting of, what's it, negative, right? Negative $78,619.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. And I make another motion to appropriate $545,000 from the following school district accounts. Excess and deficiency, E&D, $250,000. Vision sped tuition, $75,000. Transfer in from revolving accounts, $190,000. Medicaid reimbursement, $25,000.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all three motions pass. So we'll skip back up to subcommittee updates. The negotiation subcommittee just met this week, and Phil, I think you're going to report out.
Sure. We met this week to prepare for the discussions for the teachers' negotiation, which will be coming up this year, as well as everybody else, and go through the calendar, and to also start to look at the superintendent's contract, which will be up next summer as well. All right, we'll enter into it. We have some other topics to discuss later today, and that's why we put the executive session item on.
Okay, moving right along to new business and the K-12 Insight Survey results and analysis.
Okay. So I'm going to say up front that this is the PowerPoint, and I believe that all of you have had it for some time. It's 49 slides. So I'm not going to go through all 49. I'm going to pick out some of the most salient data, and then probably the most important thing is just kind of summarize. For those of you, any of you that in the audience, there is a one-pager executive summary that kind of gets into what are the big takeaways from all this data. Really the key piece is, as you all know, this was administered last June to all of our stakeholders. It was administered to all of our staff, to all of our parents, and all of our secondary level students, okay? And the core of it asks questions around 6 key areas that are germane to school climate: academic support, student support, school leadership, family involvement, safety and behavior, and school communication. And the questions really paralleled each other, but came from it from the stakeholder group's perspective. Okay. Just to give you a sense of how we participated, we had a total of 2,248 respondents. That's really good for approximately a 2-week window. And you can see the breakdown of where our response rates were. 36% response rate from our parents, about 57% of our staff members, 94% of our middle schoolers, and then about 3/4, 76% of our high school students. Something that I will comment, and Maureen and I had an opportunity to kind of have a teleconference with the K-12 Insight people, and they work with hundreds of districts across the country. And I think the important thing that I need to say up front is, I think this is very important as far as baseline data. I think it's very important. I see this as one of the components of kind of getting a physical, getting a snapshot of where you are in your district. I think we've got some terrific baseline data to work off of. But in talking to them, they also shared, well, we'd like to share a little bit of our perspective nationally in benchmarking your district with districts across the country. And what I'm going to touch upon in various snapshots, and I think there's 4 or 5 key slides here of what were your most favorable responses and what were your most unfavorable responses. And keep in mind, the majority of our unfavorable responses are areas where you're talking about like 20%, 25% of people or a stakeholder group disagreeing with the statement. And the woman that we were dealing with said, realize we work with some districts where the percentage of disagreement is like 80%, 90%. So I want to be very clear that I think this is a great snapshot of where we are, but I think also perspective is, okay, we're overwhelmingly, we have a lot of positive data, but we need to look at the data very critically of where can we grow, where can we improve, okay? These are just slides that kind of break it down further. I do want to note that if you do go to our website, mursd.org, I've put a link to this exact presentation right on the front page. So anybody watching this, you can view all 49 slides yourself. One of the very first questions, what's the overall quality of the school? Okay, you're talking 84% of our parents rated their child's school as either good or excellent. The staff, which is kind of universally across the board in all items, rates the schools the highest. In all items, 93% say good or excellent. And then at the middle school, the breakdown is 71% of the student body, and at the high school, it is 87%. So just briefly to touch upon, again, our parents, what they felt. Okay, generally across the board, our parents, by a factor of approximately 80%, are reporting that the standards and the expectations for their students are very high. Okay, they either agree or strongly agree. But if you look at one of the items, the school's learning standards and expectations are clearly explained to parents, it's at 66%. Okay? So again, I think one of the recurring themes that you're going to see is, okay, they have different stakeholder groups may have beliefs, but the question is, are they being communicated consistently and clearly on a consistent basis? Students are challenged by their schoolwork, and this is one that we're going to talk a little bit more because this is where we have a bit of a perception gap. But upwards of 70, close to 80% of our parents say that students are challenged by their schoolwork, but we're only in the ballpark of about 60% teachers give timely and helpful feedback about student work. So again, from our teachers, and then we'll see again from our student perspective, we're getting that feedback about increasing the quality and the quantity of feedback on student work. Again, teachers successfully show students how lessons relate to life outside of school. This was one of our lower ranked items. A little under a half either agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. Student support. There's a teacher or counselor or other staff member to whom a student can go to for help with a school problem. Again, overwhelmingly positive. 87% said yes. Okay. Also very positive around schools offering a variety of activities and courses, upwards of approximately 90%. Students are treated fairly regardless of their race, culture, religion, sexual orientation, gender, or disabilities. Over 80% agree or strongly agree. Also some very positive items in school leadership. Upwards of about 80% of our parents characterize school-based administrators being responsive when concerns are brought to the fore. School-based administrators ensure that the school is a welcoming environment. We're talking upwards of about 83% agree or strongly agree with that. Family involvement. Families are informed about school-sponsored activities such as after-school and enrichment programs and student activities. Well over 90%, 94% are agreeing with that. So that if you look at these items, the communication, the engagement is very high. Couple items under safety and behavior. Our parents feel that schools are very safe, 84% agree. You've got a lot of don't knows, or in some of these items, upwards of 30, 35% don't know, but if you look at some of the questions, all school staff members are aware of safety and security procedures. Parents might not know that based upon the wording of the question. School communication, again, upwards of about 90% or over 90% about school emails, about schools having regular and consistent and effective models to communicate with parents about school policies and procedures, about open house. And then, again, we get to the issue of feedback. Teachers provide me with regular feedback about my child's progress. That's one of our lower ranked items, 53% agreeing or strongly agreeing. So again, one of these key slides around highest and lowest ranking, you see some very, very positive rankings for family involvement. You see very positive rankings for school-wide communication. You see high rankings around respect and the culture of respect. As far as the strongest disagreement, it is parent-teacher conferences offer sufficient time to discuss my child's progress. And particularly from some of the commentary that we got, it was a frustration about not enough time or more sessions needed in the context of the school year. The whole feedback piece, and then the one that I mentioned at the top, the school's learning standards and expectations are clearly explained to parents, where you've got 32% of parents disagreeing with that statement. Okay? To kind of jump forward to some of the staff pieces, again, it's the same exact set of questions that were asked of parents. Overwhelmingly, again, there's concurrence about our schools being safe places, safe physically, but also safe socially and emotionally. About the communication piece, that families are informed about school-sponsored activities, and families are encouraged to attend school-sponsored activities such as back-to-school life and so on. The piece where you've got the greatest disagreement, and again, highest disagreement is a 25% disagreement, are items around discipline, around the school-based administrator resolves my issue when I have a concern, and about responsiveness when I have a concern. And again, it's not a very high disagreement, but I think that would beg a follow-up question or a follow-up focus group around, well, what did you actually mean by resolution? Or was there actually a resolution that you didn't care for the resolution? So, interesting piece there. And then the student items are interesting. Again, parallel structure. The high school students had a little bit more complex language than the middle school students. And again, if you go to first looking at the high school students as far as what they ranked highest, the school has high learning standards for all students. The students also believe that the high school offers a variety of activities and courses. there's a teacher, a counselor, or other staff member to whom the student can go for help with the school problem, the school is being safe, and students are challenged by their schoolwork. Okay, so very, very high degree. The piece that I think is interesting is the number one disagreement was around teachers showing real life connections to the curriculum. Or the way the survey item is, teachers successfully show students how lessons relate to life outside of school. Again, our students are 31% disagreed about timely and helpful feedback. And then, particularly at the high school, and I think this is an issue at most high schools, about the whole issue of engaging parents to volunteer within the school setting. When we go to our middle school students, again, same type of items, but in simpler, more kid-friendly, age-appropriate language. Something that in my conversations with Ann, and I'll speak for Ann, and I know I'm thrilled about this, the number one agreement item is bullying is not tolerated in the school. Kids generally, I know my school's safety and security procedures, my school is safe. And here's an interesting thing. The fourth agreement item is teachers set high expectations for students. And then, very similar to the high school, I can talk to an adult at school if I have a school problem. The number one disagreement, and again, it's 38%, but still, it makes you wonder, my schoolwork is challenging most of the time. And I think this begs a follow-up, seeing that at face value, it's contradictory. One of the highest ranked items is the school has high expectations, or my teachers have high expectations. Oh, but by the way, I'm not really challenged by my work. And I know Ann in her back-to-school nights addressed that with all 4 grades, parents. My teachers tell me how well I do in my schoolwork. 28%, again, that kind of speaks to the whole issue of feedback. And then adults respond quickly when someone is bullied. 23% disagree, but actually a larger percentage, I think it was upwards in the 30s, said, I don't know. And, in kind of hashing some of this data back with the K-12 Insight people, they said, well, we can follow up and we can talk to a group of kids, but it might be a situation where a student has never been bullied, or they don't have friends that have been bullied, and they don't really have a concept of the plans that are put in place when that occurs. So we put in some additional items. One question about, would you be interested in providing additional feedback through a focus group? And this is kind of an interesting piece that the grand majority of people said no. Staff members, 82% said no, 83% of the kids said no, and 64% of our parents said no. So in talking to the K-12 Insight people, they said, well, there could be a lot of reasons for that. Realize this survey probably at a minimum took them 20 minutes to complete. You're asking the question towards the end of it, so it might be, are you kidding me? I just completed this. I'm not going to give you any more of my time. They said it could be just a simple thing of people are busy, they're pulled in different directions and so on. It could be part satisfaction. So, but we do intend on doing some follow-up surveying, but also some follow-up focus groups, kind of more targeted to specific indicators within this, and in some places where we additionally want to follow up.
I think another factor too about giving the additional feedback, Joe, could potentially be, like, it doesn't, like, this was a very anonymous
Yeah.
It doesn't specifically state that it would be through with K through 12 insight.
It's true.
And not with MERSTATE.
Sure.
Maybe that intimidated some people from saying yes.
Sure.
or no.
Absolutely. Technology, then we had a small subsection asking people about use of technology. And again, this was only parents responding to this question, but as you can see kind of universally across the board, we're in the ballpark of about 70 or 80% talking about agreeing with having a level of comfort or confidence in managing their child's use of technology for assessments and for homework and so on. The amount of technology used in my student's school is roughly 60% said just right, but if you notice, the number 2 response, 20%, was don't know. So again, 1 out of 5, again, it kind of speaks to the issue of additional communication, additional outreach, much akin to kind of explaining learning standards and expectations. I think we've got to be consistent in this. When my child uses technology at home to complete homework, he or she is, again, you're talking about 72% say either focused or very focused, and then in the ballpark of about 20 to 22% say either distracted or very distracted. So, the net of some of the big takeaways from these many items from over 2,000 respondents, if you had to boil it down to some key takeaways, first off, kind of universally across the board, our schools are generally perceived as very safe, and again, physically safe, but also social, emotionally safe. Very clear across the board that bullying is not tolerated. A general sentiment of responsive school leadership. Communication comes up time and again as a theme. I would say generally positive, but the theme being greater consistency, and greater consistency from classroom to classroom, or from team to team, or from grade level to grade level. I think from all of our stakeholders, the issue of timely and helpful feedback on student work and figuring out how to improve that. Good understanding and management of child's technology use, but again, I think consistently hitting the communication and the outreach to parents and engaging them in meaningful ways throughout the school year is key. And then that last issue of relevance, of connecting what we're doing with kids to the real world. And that's a big, big challenge. As a former high school chemistry teacher, when I'm teaching the relevance of the noble gases versus the halogens and how each reacts, yeah, I can give them plenty of examples, but invariably you get the kid who's going to say, okay, how am I going to use this in the real world someday? So, but I think it's an important, and it speaks to the quality of our curriculum, and it speaks to the quality of our instructional practices. So the key piece is we do plan on implementing some follow-up focus groups using K-12 Insight staff. I know we're also planning on, particularly with some of our middle school students, doing some following up surveys, again, getting to that issue of challenging work. And I know Ann's got some thoughts about some different ideas, particularly around rate inflation and so on, that she very much wants to follow up on. And starting with our district action plans, but also our individual 4 school improvement plans, we're using this as a key data point to address some specific plans that kind of speak to our large takeaways. Okay, so I know that that was very, very quick. It's very, very dense. I know all of you have received copies of the aggregate plus the disaggregated data. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
One thing that I would just point out, that the results that you shared with us, those were all 4 schools lumped
It
together,
is. It was
correct?
the district.
Okay.
Except for where the students replied. Clearly.
That was-
They broke them
Yeah,
down
because
because
they
they were
broke them
different
down by-
items, yeah.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see where the school improvement plans directly kind of relate to the feedback that's given, and that how some of those key items that we're focused on a school-by-school basis, because I think it'd be interesting to see the synopsis of learning that comes out of one particular school or grade level versus another, so that we could understand that. Because I think when I looked at the survey and just the mass amounts of data, it seemed like there were some different focus areas for different schools, depending on what school it was. So it'd be great to see when we get, I know we're talking about that at the next meeting, but when we get to the specific school improvement plans, it'll be great to see kind of where we've created a synopsis of that particular school and how that translates into the actions that are being taken. But I do agree, I think one of the biggest items is that communication one. You know, you can see it in terms of the understanding and the comprehension people have, and parents specifically, around the student achievement and what it is and all of that. I think we've made good progress in many areas, but that's still there. And then just broadly, some of that communication out to the parent groups that are there.
Agreed.
Another thing that this is more personal for me, but under technology, the question that says, when my child uses technology at home to complete homework, he or she is, focused, very focused, distracted, very distracted. 20% are in the, or more than 20% are in the distracted, very distracted. So I can certainly have an appreciation for a kid who can come home and work on an iPad with very little supervision and get their work done, but for those who can't, like maybe offering some sort of options and making it more clear to parents that they don't necessarily have to do their homework on an iPad. I know that I've repeatedly had to take it away from my students because we do have issues with that, but I don't think that's very widespread and known that that could potentially be an option for a kid who's really struggling with it. So just my own little personal take on the technology piece.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to the parent outreach and the parent education piece. I think we've just started to crack the surface of what we need to do.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those, for me personally, when parents are coming to me, it is because they are very frustrated with technology, and they are very frustrated. So I think that it's important to be responsive to that 20% or 20-something percent of people that are very or students who are very distracted to distracted. Any other comments? Moving along to the approval of district
So can
action.
Sorry, I
plans.
did have one more comment, sorry. I mean, back up. So, it's great that we've taken this, now we have, I would call it kind of a stake in the ground. I guess, when would we reach out to do a similar survey? I mean, I don't want to deaden people with survey overload, but is this something we do every 2-3 years? What is it?
Foxborough
Yeah.
did 3 consecutive years where they did it annually, and then they've migrated to every 2 years because they wanted to track specific data for specific schools, but also district-wide data, so they could map out specific data points to show improvement. I think following that kind of model is very, very wise. So looking at, okay, we hear you, we've responded, and then in the spring again, once you've put some plans in place, getting a second set of data, I think would serve us well.
Okay.
So that's my game plan. My game plan 2 is once we have action plans and the school improvement plans finalized, kind of doing an electronic newsletter to send out to all of our parents, sending them back to the website, which again now has those 49 slides, but I want to be able, in relatively simplistic terms, be able to communicate back to our parents, okay, hey, remember the survey that you did before school ended last school year? These were the results. These were our big takeaways, and as a result, these are the actionable things that we're doing based upon your feedback. I think we have parents who are hungry for, okay, I did it, for knowing, okay, I put some time and effort into a survey, and it didn't just go into a big black electronic hole.
Agreed.
So we're talking about doing it maybe in 2 or 3 years. Would you consider, Joe, so you identified some areas that were issues. I mean, we have our strengths that, you know, are awesome, and then we have some areas for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Would we consider not doing a K through 12 insight, because that was long and extensive, and I can understand why parents may have been all surveyed out by the end of the year, but just focusing in, you know, taking each school where their kind of their challenges lay, and just doing a brief 5-minute survey to kind of follow up and say, hey, this is what you identified as issues. How do you think we're doing now? We have a school year under our belt where we've focused, we've developed our action plans based on these. How do you think we're doing now?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea, and realize, I think the powerful thing about K-12 Insight is they work with you and anything is customizable.
Okay.
So yeah, that would be very, very doable.
I just don't, I don't think it needs to
I
be
do
as
think though
lengthy.
that there's power though, rather than necessarily having 4 separate surveys, that, okay, this is the Clough survey that focuses just on school leadership, and here's the Memorial survey that focuses just on academic support, and here's the MISCO survey that focuses just on technology. There has to be commonality, and there has to be some common threads. You might be able to do bits and pieces of, you know, specialization, but I also do think that there's power in looking at whole district data as well. You know what I'm saying?
I was going to say that if you start piecemealing, and I don't mean that negatively, but just start pulling out little pieces here, little pieces there, the negatives or positives, or however you're going to do it, you're going to lose some of the big picture information from this, looking, because it did go into so much depth. If we start pulling pieces and we only want to see this, we're going to really lose some of the information of those ratings that were rated high. Are we still really high on those ratings and going higher, or are we dropping? So we're going to lose some information if we start pulling it apart, because we're not going to see if those high ratings remain high or even move higher.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my only concern, Tana, is just that whole survey fatigue.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I
Stretch
really
the
feel like when
imagination.
you've got numbers like we've got for the positives about our
Yeah.
district, I don't feel like there's any great concern with those numbers dropping from 90s down to 70s. You know what I mean? But there is great potential in bringing a 70 up to an 85 or
Yes.
a 90. And that's what our goal is. That was our goal in general, to kind of find out how we're doing and how we can improve. I mean, that's really the goal, I would think, the overarching goal here. But then just giving students, teachers, you know, staff, parents, a voice to say, yeah, this is is improving, this is great, this is just what we wanted to see, or it isn't having a big impact, whatever the case would be. My gut would say that if you're developing your school plans, school improvement plans and your district action plans to respond to some of these things, you're going to see improvements.
Should.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I believe it. I believe you will. So. Okay, anybody else before we move on? Okay. Approval of district action plan for 2016-17.
You want to hear more of me? This PowerPoint's only 48 slides, okay?
All right, let's
Now
go.
it's like 12. It's really going to go quick. Okay, so you should have before you, and there are some additional copies on the table over there, some draft district action plans. And again, we're now, I believe, in year 4 of our 5-year strategic plan. And as we have each of the year, we've kind of prioritized. And in a very natural, and maybe one of the meetings coming up, we'll go back to that 5-year plan, and we'll show you how much we've actually accomplished of the various strategic objectives. And I think we had an insane amount, like 33 different strategic initiatives within the plan. As I always say, the 4 big rocks, or the 4 pillars of our plan, are around instructional excellence, expanding options in programming, performance management, and then, as always, improving communication, collaboration, and outreach. So we've got 5 different strategic initiatives that we're focusing on. You'll probably notice that a lot of this, a considerable portion of it, are some of the same strategic initiatives that we've focused on in years past. Because, quite frankly, a lot of it are multi-year projects and multi-year goals. So our first key goal is formalizing the use of common assessments, including the collaborative development of common assessments, the calibration and scoring of common assessments, and the use of common assessment data to improve teaching and learning. So if you go through the actual plans, you'll see some of the highlighted key actions and some of the benchmarks associated with that, the same format that we've used over the last 4 years. Again, some of the key actions kind of speak to our teachers in existing structures, things like grade level and team level meetings during common planning time, during data blocks, them actually using formal protocols to create common assessments or to examine student work and then calibrate their scoring. I talked a little bit earlier tonight about using and taking stock of digital online assessments and ensuring that we're using them, but also providing PD to our teachers in their use. And then continuing, I believe we're in our 3rd year now of our curriculum mapping process using the online tool Rubicon Atlas, but completing that work for stage 2 of the process, which is logging what we're using for assessments. Second goal is really about formalizing our curriculum review and revision process. If you'll note, we've done a lot of work in ELA. We've done a lot of work in math. Those have been our primary areas. But really kind of having a robust and dynamic curriculum cycle for all of our content areas and formalizing that. Some of the key actions kind of speak to taking stock and accounting for where are we with regard to completion of stage 1 and stage 2 in our curriculum mapping process. We've gotten a lot of feedback from our professional staff that they want more opportunities to observe professional practices not only within their building, but also across the district. So think about the process of somebody like, say, Shelley Cook from the high school going down to Memorial and seeing what they're doing in 4th grade science, or vice versa. Plus, we also have plans for more vertical articulation. So thinking about content area teachers, again, sticking with the example of science, having set days in the course of the school year where science teachers from the high school, middle school, and at the elementary level actually spend a half day working on vertical articulation, but then maybe a second half day observing each other and observing each other in different grade levels. And then we've talked a lot about something known as the SAMR model, and that is a curriculum model to improve technology integration, to really get not just at simple substitution using technology in lieu of something simpler, but really using technology to cultivate higher order thinking. Our third goal, again, this is probably at least the third year that we've had this goal in place. It's to continue our journey in improving our inclusion model at every level for our kids. And really specifically to build upon a lot of the high quality work that we've done with regard to co-teaching. Significant progress has been made at the elementary grades and recently very much at the middle school. So the key actions kind of speak to building upon that, growing that. Some of our key actions kind of speak to doing a data analysis, and this is something that unfortunately we didn't complete last year, but we plan on completing this and reporting out. Now that we've got inclusion in place, particularly at the elementary grades, let's do a cohort analysis and let's see how these kids are doing on, say, something like MCAS or on some of our benchmark assessments. What does that co-teaching really lead to as far as outcomes? Again, continuing the work that we're doing with PD for our teachers, but also for our paraprofessionals. And also having kind of a new mentoring program for our teachers who are going into a co-teaching relationship, so to speak. So having across grade levels, across schools, a mentoring program. And then kind of in time for the next budget cycle, what is it going to take and what are some of the resources and staffing implications to expand co-teaching even further than what we have now. Our fourth goal, and Maureen talked about this extensively, is really raising the awareness of all our stakeholders with regard to social emotional learning and what are some of our needs. And really kind of using this year to take stock of what type of programming, what type of resources do we have in place, and then to plan for a research-based social emotional learning program. So some of the key actions that we have are, again, taking stock, conducting a data analysis to assess what are our strengths and what are our areas of need. Really making social emotional learning, professional development priorities so our teachers have more strategies with their kids. We got a lot of feedback, particularly from our counseling staff and our nursing staff, that they want more specific time to work on planning the transitions from elementary to middle and then middle to high. A lot of our issues and a lot of our anxieties and so on come out during those key transition plays. And then doing more programming for our parents and also creating more community partnerships vis-a-vis counseling and other wraparound services. And then the last goal, again, streamlining communications and then district marketing itself by highlighting best practices and achievements to all stakeholders. So one of the things that we plan on launching within the next month is a new version of our mass email system known as Blackboard Connect. Again, some of the feedback that specifically we got, particularly in the commentary section of the K-12 Insight Survey, was too many emails, not enough emails. I don't like clicking on all those PDFs, you're killing me. So under the new latest version of Blackboard Connect, we'll be able to have various opt-in or opt-out options for parents. So if I'm the middle school parent and my kid never ever plays a sport or never has a desire, any middle school email that has to do with just sports, I'll be able to opt out, or vice versa.
Will you just get like an email at the beginning of the year saying what areas do you wish to receive communications?
Yeah,
Is that how
and
it'll work?
the way it'll work is it'll actually come from Blackboard Connect, and it has a feature to tag various topics. Another piece of feedback, again, to make it favorable, I know some of the frustration is you have to click on the PDF attachments, and then it pops up on a separate screen, so you're clicking a bunch of PDFs. It'll have a cleaner formatting so that it'll be all in HTML, so you'll be able to read it instead of having to click, unless it has an attachment that is for a form that you have to submit or so on. We started the process. It's not 100% complete, but we've upgraded our district and our 4 school websites to make them more user-friendly, more intuitive. Again, the consistency piece from classroom to classroom, going to one consistent learning management system, Google Classroom, and our goal is 100% usage at the secondary level. And then continuing the work that we're doing around not only Gmail, but various Google apps for education, ensuring that our teachers are familiar with them and have a high degree of comfort in able to integrate them into their instruction. We talked about this when we approved the tech plan back in June, but one of the game plans will be both not only mid, but also end of the year status reports on how we're doing with regard to various goals and benchmarks. Okay, so those are our 5 goal areas for this year's action plans. I didn't touch upon every single action plan step, but just kind of highlighted some of the keys. Does anybody have any questions on any of that?
Okay, moving right along to.
So actually a motion
Oh,
to.
to approve it.
Can I ask one question?
You
Or
certainly
I do have
can.
a question.
You're good at that.
I guess my question doesn't have to do with this, it actually has to do with the statement I think you made at the very beginning of the year that we're in year 4 of our 5-year strategic plan. So I would guess my question is, well, I know my question is, what are our next steps to actually form the committee or the strategy group necessary to take a look at that strategy and then enhance it and evolve it for the next 5 years versus just where we are today and quote unquote completing it?
So we will be in a place probably next fall where we will convene a full new strategic plan committee, and like we did now 4 years ago, that'll be every single stakeholder group. I think last time our core committee was probably in the ballpark of about 35 to 40 individuals, and I think we had great representation across the board. So we will have somebody facilitate it, and again, it will be around visioning. It will be around taking multiple data points. It'll be also taking a look at this existing strategic plan and the 5 action plans, annual action plans that made it up, looking at, again, the unresolved issues, and again, breaking it down by what are our strategic objectives and what are our initiatives that we'd like to see through within the next 5 years.
So we're really saying we're gonna target next fall to do that work.
Yeah. They probably get the ball rolling October, November of next year.
probably good in the springtime though to figure out what those different groups are and who will be able to participate. Because I know we'll want to be able to wrap that together so that by the springtime we'll probably have some strategy that we're reviewing and able to finalize it before the end of the school
Yeah.
year.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the district action plans for 2016-17.
Make a motion to approve the district action plans for 2016-17.
Second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it passes. Discussion of a resolution against lifting the cap on Commonwealth charter schools.
Okay, I put in your packet a resolution that I believe we're up to something in the ballpark of 72 different school districts, school committees across the Commonwealth have approved. And it really, it speaks to, as I'm sure you're cognizant, that ballot question number 2, which is a statewide ballot question on November 8th, would lift the existing cap on new charter schools. And what it would do is it would enable an additional 12 charter schools above the existing amount that are permitted each year. Okay? As I say in my background notes, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, as is the State Superintendent's Association, as is the MTA, are very strongly opposed to this question. And as you can see in the resolution, for the various reasons that are delineated there about charter schools, and I think we could have a healthy debate if one was disposed to, but the bottom line about this cap issue is it would be increasing the number of charter schools without increasing funding. It would be the same pot of money, so to speak, just more would be dispersed in the way of charter schools. As I say in my background notes, we are not a school district that is dramatically impacted by a charter school, just surely based upon the geography. However, with the lifting of the cap, that could all be very much subject to change. I bring forward for your consideration the resolution. You see what the financial impact is to Mendon Upton, but you also see what the impact is to public school districts across the entire Commonwealth. That for FY17, it's over $450 million of impact. I personally feel very strongly about this topic. I would be willing to have a dialogue with anyone, any of our parents, any of our community members about this specific ballot issue. I think there's certain things that should not go forward to a ballot issue for public consideration. I think educational policy is definitely a bad idea to put on a ballot. So if anybody has any questions or commentary, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have on this.
So what is it they're raising the cap of? Is it the actual number of schools, or is it the number of students on a district level that can go to the schools? Because right now, isn't it like a cap level based on the number of students in a region? I can honestly, I haven't spent a huge amount of time on it.
There's actually a wonderful article, I sent it to all of you on Mass Live, that actually was out today. It's my understanding, yes, it is the number of students and the amount of funding that any district with the exception of a low-performing district, cannot spend more than 9% of its budget towards a charter school payment. If it's a lower performing district, if it's like a Springfield or a Fitchburg, that increases to 12%.
Okay. But what you're saying also too is they're not changing any of the rules beholden around, you know, the differences in special ed, the differences in, you know, kind of student involvement, things like that
Correct.
currently drive challenges.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I guess when I look at this, I don't see, until they actually drive more of the benefit of the realignment of school funding based on the last conversations that were had. I mean, the same issues that apply here apply to vocational schools, apply to the other end. You can take all the money, but it doesn't really help.
It's unequal funding, but it's also unequal accountability.
Because they're not beholden to anybody in the community? What's the accountability issue? Just
A lot of the accountability guidelines established by DESE are not charter schools are not held to the same degree that public school districts are to. And realize charter schools also are run by boards. They're not necessarily run by publicly elected officials like a traditional school district. So the degree of public accountability is nowhere near as great as it is in a traditional public school district, in many cases.
Okay, so we need to read the entire resolution. Okay. Do we have somebody who's ready and willing to read the resolution? Make a motion to approve the resolution?
oh, look, got it right here. So I make a motion to approve the resolution against lifting the cap on Commonwealth charter schools. Whereas free public schools available to all students regardless of income, ability, need, or English language proficiency are foundational to our democracy. And whereas all of our students deserve high-quality public schools that teach the whole child, providing enrichment and addressing social and emotional needs in addition to core academic subjects, and whereas local accountability for our public schools is necessary to ensure that schools are responsive to the needs of their communities, and whereas the Mendon-Upton Regional School District is losing $78,619 to Commonwealth charter schools and public school districts across the state are losing more than $450 million this year, FY 2017 alone, a loss of funds that is undermining the ability of districts to provide all students with the educational services to which they are entitled, and whereas Commonwealth charter schools are often approved over the objection of a majority of community residents and their elected officials and are not accountable to local elected officials once they are approved, and whereas Commonwealth charter schools often fail to serve the same proportion of special needs students, low-income students, and English language learners as the districts from which they receive students, and often use high suspension rates to drive out students they don't want to serve, and whereas the Commonwealth charter school system is creating separate and unequal opportunities for success, and whereas lifting the cap on charter schools would greatly worsen the problems listed above and lead to a costly and diverse two-track school system. Therefore, be it resolved that the Mendon-Upton Regional School Committee opposes lifting the cap on the Commonwealth charter schools.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
So we just have to sign. Okay, moving on to correspondence. We have one correspondence from the Mendon Upton, Upton Men's Club. I do not have it, I did not print it out.
It is a very, very nice thank you from Brad Dio for the use of Nipmuc for the annual fireworks festival. They're a great group of guys. We love them. They love us. It's just a really nice thank you. And actually, we also have a second correspondence. I think it should have been in your packet. It is just a letter from Representative John Fernandez kind of detailing the final numbers for Chapter 78 and Circuit Breaker and so on. I put it in there and just kind of, I'd like to publicly state he will be retiring soon. Just hats off. A very, very accessible legislator, very hands-on, very approachable, and always advocated for kids. So we will miss Representative Fernandez.
Okay, do we have any other matters not anticipated by the committee within 48 hours of the posted meeting? Okay, our future agenda items will involve school improvement plans and approval of school improvement plans for 2016-17 on September 26th. So if there's nothing further, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
We got a motion to.
Oh, that's right, to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion for a roll call vote to executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, exemption, I believe it's actually number 1 or number 2, to prepare for collective bargaining. The subcommittee will not return to open session.
Do you have a second? Second. Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, we'll do a roll call vote.
Hannah Jane go aye.
Am Shantai?
Diane Duncan, aye.
You are in aye.
Bulldozer Utter, aye.
Okay, so at 8:50, we are adjourned to executive session. Thank you, everyone.
Fantastic.